Speedway legend Ivan Mauger has died at the age of 78. The six-time world champion, who made his name riding for some of Britain's most successful teams, passed away on Monday morning following a long battle with illness. Mauger had suffered from a form of dementia and Alzheimer's. Considered by many as the greatest ever to compete in Speedway, Mauger became a cult hero in England during spells at many clubs between 1957 and 1981. Mauger's daughter Debbie wrote on Twitter, "You knew him as Ivan and I truly respect that, I really do. I was so lucky and privileged to know him as Dad. How lucky we all were. Such an amazing life lived to the max." The New Zealander is tied with Swedish star Tony Rickardsson for the record total of World Championship victories on 6. His world title victories came in 1968, 1969, 1970, 1972, 1977 and 1979, but his dominance of the sport was so significant he was third in 1967 and second in 1971, 1973 and 1974. Mauger retired from racing in 1985 but went on to become a world-renowned promoter of the sport. Despite living in Australia, he has paid visits to England in recent years to see the development of Bellevue Ace's new stadium. Bellevue tweeted on Monday, "We are saddened to learn of the passing of a true Speedway legend and megastar, Ivan Mauger. Our thoughts and condolences are with his family at this difficult time." Ivan Mauger was the golden boy of Speedway, and not just because his bike was gold-plated for posterity. From a nation where he had the All Blacks religion, Open golf champion Bob Charles and Olympic middle distance gold medalist John Walker for Sporting Company, Mauger cast the longest shadows of all in the land of the long white cloud. 6 times world champion and 3 times runner-up between 1968-79, Mauger was the first superstar on shale. No disrespect to Steve McQueen hurdling the barbed wire in The Great Escape. No disrespect to stunt king Evel Knievel hurdling rows of double-decker buses in a glorified long jump. No disrespect to Barry Sheen, splashing himself in Brute aftershave. And no disrespect to Mike Hailwood, Kenny Roberts or Valentino Rossi, who all that knew their way round a racetrack at high speed. Ivan Mauger, who died at the weekend aged 78 after a long, dignified struggle against the ravages of Alzheimer's, was the greatest thing on 2 wheels. He was just 17 when he left New Zealand, with his 16-year-old wife Ray, and caught a boat to England in search of a fast track to stardom. For 24 years, he graced the ovals at Wimbledon Dons, Rye House Roosters, Eastbourne Eagles, Newcastle Diamonds, Bellevue Aces, Exeter Falcons, and Hull Vikings. Your correspondent was lucky enough to see him in action when Poole Pirates came calling at the county ground in Exeter 42 years ago. Mauger's broadside duels with Malcolm Simmons, the England captain, were Clash of the Titans stuff. In 1970, American Speedway magnate George Wendt and chrome plating tycoon Ray Bokelman promised Mauger they would get his bike gold-plated if he completed a hat-trick of World Championship titles. And when the Kiwi legend duly rose to the challenge in Poland, they were as good as their word. His bike was shipped to the States, given a layer of bullion emulsion and, 48 years later, it remains on display at the Canterbury Museum in Christchurch. Mauger's daughter, Julie, recalled last year how the gold rush began with classic prospector's optimism, saying, "He was 17 and married to my mum. They were literally 2 teenagers who got on a boat going to the other side of the world with someone's name on a piece of paper. Dad wasn't money-driven, he was driven by winning." Although much of his racing career was spent on British shores, following the tracks left by compatriots Barry Briggs and Ronnie Moore, Mauger remained fiercely proud of his Kiwi roots. Whenever the All Blacks were playing, he would always fly their iconic Fern Standard outside his home. But nobody flew the flag for New Zealand, or motorsport, higher than Ivan Mauger. Words by Mike Walters.